All right, so here we are with another DC Multiverse unboxing, and this is Hugo Strange's Batman from the storyline Batman Transference. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. First, let me show you something else cool I got. Oh, it's Darkseid. So I'll be opening him sometime next week. I've got those four superpowers figures I need to open, and that's going to be starting Monday. I'm going to be unboxing the superpowers figures. I'll do him once I'm done with those, and I've got some other cool stuff. I've finally got the superpowers Blue Beetle's bug. Got some more He-Man stuff. I've got another G.I. Joe figure to open. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up. Let me tell you. So anyway, this is Hugo Strange as Batman. Hugo Strange in a Batman outfit, anyway. And lovely piece of artwork on the back by Brian Bolland. You can see that this says that it's from the storyline Batman Transference, but it's a little more complicated than that. Now, the cover we have here, this is from an issue of Batman Gotham Knights. This is where the storyline took place of Transference. And I believe it was in the early day, like the first year sometime of that comic. The main thing I remember from that particular series was the not this. This was not even the most memorable cover of it to me. Although it is a great cover. No, the most memorable cover was one where it showed Batman chloroforming Catwoman while she had her whip tied around his neck. It's a very kinky cover. Now, if you actually read the story, it's not Batman. It's Hugo Strange in his Batman outfit. But it is very much in the Silver Age tradition of the clickbait cover. So yeah. I like that cover anyway. So, he's got a fabric cape, I think. Yeah, he's got a fabric cape. Okay, we're going to have fun with this. I bet they made his cape at the same time as they made Adam West's Batman cape, because it looks like it's the same material. All right. So, even though it says it's specifically based off of this storyline, there are some other elements from other comics in here as well. So I'm a big fan of the Legends of the Dark Knight arc Prey, and you can see that Hugo's Batman emblem is the Batman emblem from that storyline. And also, he's got this Bruce Wayne rubber mask, and that is an homage to his appearance in Detective Comics in the 1970s under Steve Englehart as the writer and Marshall Rogers as the artist. Now, let's talk a little bit about Hugo Strange as a character and the history of such. So, for those of you not familiar with Hugo Strange was the original archenemy of Batman. This is the character that was designed to be his Professor Moriarty. So, he was the one that was they were setting him up to be like the big bad of the entire Batman franchise. But funny thing happened. Is in the very same issue that features the last Hugo Strange story, I believe, of the Golden Age. There might have been one or two more, but it's certainly one of the last. It's the one with the Monster Men. I seem to remember there was one that had Robin in it, which means it would have to take place after this one, but I can't remember the specifics of it. The last really memorable Hugo Strange story, let's say, He first appeared in Detective Comics, but he appeared in this issue of Batman, which clearly was like a story that they had that was unused, because, like I said, Robin's not in this story, and he'd been introduced by this point. But another character also appeared a couple of characters, because Catwoman also appeared, but another character appeared in Batman #1 and was actually featured in 2 stories in that particular issue. A little guy called the Joker. You might have heard of him. And once the Joker was introduced, that was it for Hugo Strange, because they'd found the guy who was actually going to be Batman's arch nemesis going forward, and they kind of forgot about poor old Hugo until the 1970s when Steve Englehart and Marshall Rogers were doing their classic run on Detective Comics, and they brought him back and did a story where he not only discovered that Bruce Wayne was Batman, but actually impersonated both Bruce Wayne and Batman. Really more Bruce Wayne in the issue. There's not a whole lot of Hugo as Batman, but he does wear the outfit. And then when the Legends of the Dark Knight series started, one of the first storylines in there, I think it was like the third actually, was Prey, and Hugo was the main villain of that. And he, in this storyline, was a psychiatrist who was obsessed with Batman. So he was wearing the Batman outfit kind of to try to get into Batman's head. So he had this kind of makeshift Batman outfit that he wore. And there's elements, like I said, of this in this particular costume. We'll get more into that later. But yeah, that's probably, I think, as far as like the modern readers go, that's probably the most definitive version of Hugo Strange, since that's the first post-crisis version of the character. Anyway, let's go ahead and open them up. We'll take one last look at this great piece of Brian Bolland artwork on there. Well, not one last. We're going to look at it again. You'll see what I'm talking about when I get to it. So, anyway, let's go ahead and open them up. So he has a much shorter cape than Adam West had, which makes me think that maybe they accidentally swapped the capes at some point in the process. Really, I think Hugo could have come with the longer cape, and Adam West could have come with the shorter cape. But as we say on Earth, c'est la vie. Let's get the accessories out, and the accessories he comes with, of course, is the rubber Bruce Wayne mask, which, like I say, this is something that appears in the Steve Englehart Marshall Rogers issues, and the way that it's drawn in the splash page, where Hugo is yanking the mask off of his face, it looks almost exactly like that illustration. So they definitely did this on purpose. And Hugo has 2 extra hands, much like with the Hush Batman. These hands have like texture to them that isn't on the regular hands, I don't believe. So yeah, I guess just trying to save money and not having sculpted an entire extra set of hands. So let's go ahead and get Hugo out of the package. And he's got the dreaded double rubber tabs around his waist. So let's cut those first. And it looks like that's all the rubber tabs. So that's nice. Okay, cool. Be very careful not to catch this tape on the packaging. I don't want to mess that up any at all. So yeah, Hugo has a much shorter cape than what Adam West had, and this is actually a lot more accurate to what Adam West's cape should have looked like. So that's like why I said I think that they kind of accidentally swapped what those capes should have been. This probably should have been the Adam West cape, and the Adam West cape should have been on Hugo Strange. Hugo should have had a longer cape, and Adam West should have had a shorter cape. But whatever. So look at that head sculpt. That is a great head sculpt. And you can tell, told you we're going to come back to it, you can tell that they were very much copying the Brian Bolland artwork. That was definitely the reference that was handed down there. Somebody made the wise decision of handing this comic book to the sculptor, or maybe the sculptor thought of it himself. Hey, he should look like this. So we're going to set the figure aside because we got a couple more things in this package to go over. Namely, the figure stand and the trading card. And thankfully, as I always like to see, the figure stand and the trading card are on the same bubble, which means it's going to be very easy for me to get this trading card out of here. All right. And again, we have the same piece of Brian Bolland artwork on the trading card. that's what the back looks like, and it reads: Hugo Strange's Batman, Batman Transference, data file, real name Hugo Strange. Hugo Strange was one of the few people who had deduced Batman's secret identity. He rose to fame as a psychological consultant on Gotham City talk shows, speculating on Batman's psyche and motivations. Fortunately for Batman, Strange's own psychological instability always made it difficult for him to remember what he knew for very long, so the Dark Knight avoided the danger of having his identity widely known. Now, in the comic where where Hugo figures out that Batman is actually Bruce Wayne, he does try to auction off the identity of Batman to three of his greatest enemies, which in this version was the Joker, the Penguin, and Rupert Thorne. Now, they did very loosely. I can't emphasize how loosely they did adapt this this issue into an episode of Batman the Animated Series. And when I say that they loosely adapted it, I mean they basically took the idea that Hugo figured out that Batman and Bruce Wayne were the same guy, and the idea of him auctioning off the identity of Batman to his enemies, which in this version was the Joker, the Penguin, and Two-Face, rather than Rupert Thorne. So I guess Two-Face got a little bit of revenge on Rupert Thorne by stealing his place as Batman's third greatest villain. Or maybe second in between Penguin, though I refuse to put Rupert Thorne above the Penguin. He doesn't even have umbrella gadgets. So, but Hugo in that was drawn much more like his Golden Age version, and even then, like, he had that kind of misshapen head that Hugo had in the Golden Age comics, whereas you can see, like, this version of Hugo has a fairly normal shaped head. Bald guy with a beard who's obsessed with Batman. I can't relate to that at all. but yeah, another element that I noticed that's similar to his appearance in Prey is that he has these boots that are kind of flat across the top, and that's how Hugo's boots were drawn on his Batman outfit in that particular storyline. It does not feature an alternate head to put the mask onto Hugo Strange, although in Prey it was a full face, full head hood that covered his entire all of his facial features, so it would have covered up the beard. So maybe I'll try to make like a custom version of that. Maybe like I've got like a Cobra Commander hooded head. I can maybe do something with that. I don't know, but yeah, they reused for the most part. I know I had him around here somewhere. This is mostly a repaint of the Three Jokers version of Batman, the Jason Fabok version, which I know I had that around here somewhere, and I was kind of purposely keeping it around here because I knew I was gonna. Oh, there he is. Because I knew I was going to talk about this some in this. He's a little dusty. Anyway, I knew I was going to talk about this in this episode. So, but not as many parts as I would have thought. So you can see these are the hands, the extra hands that came with Hugo Strange. So that's where they originally came from. And then the torso is almost the same except for the emblem. And it looks to me like this emblem is actually like a separate piece that's glued on. So they just kind of painted the emblem onto Hugo Strange. So I believe it's the same torso and the same upper arms. And I would have thought it would have been the same forearms, but it's actually not, because the Fabok Batman actually has a little bit of a leathery texture to it, and Hugo's gauntlets are very smooth. Although it looks like it's based on the same sculpt, they just kind of smoothed it out a little bit. So they actually went through the trouble of making new forearms for Hugo Strange, and I don't think they really needed to. I think they probably could have used these forearms and nobody would have complained. But they did go the extra mile to give Hugo Strange some unique forearms, so that's pretty cool. The abs are the same. The trunks look the same, but the belt is different because you can see that this one has the Fabok designed utility belt from that issue, which is a little more influenced by the Michael Keaton Batman utility belt, and this one has like the Neil Adams style utility belt. So, and then I already pointed out that the shins are different because this one has those kind of Michael Keaton inspired boots, just with the ridging reversed. It goes uh, up and then down instead of down and then up, like these go. And Hugo, like I said, has just kind of like these plain straight across brown boots. I do think this is a really good body that could be used for a Bronze Age or Silver Age Batman at some point in the future. So it's not a bad idea to do. By the way, here's the actual Nightfall Batman, so we can get a look at him next to the closest thing we have to this version of Hugo Strange. So now, obviously, since it's the Fabok version, he is a bit uh, bigger and bulkier than the leaner Nightfall version. But I mean, that still kind of works. I kind of think of Hugo as being a fairly like stocky guy. Going back to what I was talking about with Batman the Animated Series, on that one he was drawn as fairly overweight, so I don't think he would have worn a Batman costume at all in that continuity, which is too bad. One of the things that I find interesting about Hugo is the way that he kind of and this is very much a thing that, you know, Bronze Age going forward. They first did it in the 70s with him taking on the identity of Batman, but it kind of became his thing that he would impersonate Batman. And you know, like I said, in Prey, it's not necessarily like he's trying to fool people into thinking he's Batman, although he does do that at a certain point in the story. I don't want to spoil too much of it. But really more he just wears the outfit, like I said, to try to get into Batman's head psychologically and understand the power of wearing the suit and everything like that, which I think is really cool. So let's see if we can get him to hold the mask in his hand. And like I said, he's got the two hands, and one of them is a gripping hand, and the other hands are kind of like these kind of more like gesturing hands, but they look like they could grip something. So I'm going to try to fit the Bruce Wayne mask in between those fingers and see if we can get him to hold it. And it doesn't seem like I'm going to be able to. You know, the Mcfarlane hands, like I said, they can be kind of stiff sometimes. And I was kind of hoping maybe I could just wedge the mask underneath that, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And in fact, I pulled his hand off when I really didn't mean to. Came off a little easier than I expected. So they got like a whole bunch of different Batman figures at Walmart as like exclusive things. They had the Bullseye Batman, which was one of the alternate outfits he wore in the Rainbow Batman storyline in the Silver Age. And they had God, what else did they have? They had Dick Grayson as Batman from the Grant Morrison run. Yeah, here he is holding the mask. So, and then they had God, what else did they have? I think they had another one, but I can't remember. Well, they had this one, obviously, and they got the Adam West Batman in over there, of course, which is where I picked that up. But like that one's not a Warner, a Walmart exclusive. That one's but I think they might have got that in as part of the same assortment. I think, I don't know for certain, but yeah, he looks cool holding that Bruce Wayne mask. I like that. So that's probably going to be in the thumbnail. We're probably going to show him holding the Bruce Wayne mask in the thumbnail. I do wish they had him come with an extra Batman cowl. Maybe not even like an alternate head, but just a cowl that he could hold like this, because that would be cool to display. But honestly, I really like the Bruce Wayne mask, since, like I said, it is a direct reference to the classic Steve Englehart and Marshall Rogers Detective Comics run, some of the best Batman comics ever made, in this fan's humble opinion. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be about the thumbnail pose. It's probably going to look something like that, I think. So let's go ahead and talk about the articulation. First of all, Hugo does have a wired fabric cape, which is really cool. I'm really digging these wired fabric capes that we're starting to see more and more often on the Mcfarlane figures. So 1939 Batman has one. Adam West Batman has one. And now Hugo Strange has one. Also, the Earth 2 Superman and the Batman Forever Robin. I think those are the other figures I have that have wired capes. I believe that the new Tim Drake Robin they have, the Rebirth version, I believe he has a wired cape. All right, so he's got the wired cape. Hugo Strange, he's got this head that's like I guess probably because they reuse this hush body, but his neck actually isn't articulated where the head meets the neck. It's just articulated at the base of the neck, which is weird for Hugo Strange. It makes sense for Batman because with Batman you kind of want to have the head be flush with the neck because like the aesthetic of it. So I get why you do it on a Batman figure. But it's weird to see it done on Hugo Strange, even though, like, I know why they did it because they're reusing this Fabok body, but, you'd figure they could have figured out some other way to do it, but they didn't. So, but whatever. So Hugo Strange can look up about that far. He can look down about that far. He can tilt his head kind of quizzically from side to side, but it's gonna happen at the base of the neck, and of course it rotates all the way around. So you can get a lot of cool poses out of it, even with the unusual type of articulation there. Hugo Strange can, of course, rotate his arm all the way around the shoulder. He does have the butterfly joints. I'm trying to move the cape out of the way so we can see a little better. They move forward about that far, backwards about that far. It's not the best range of motion for a butterfly joint, but that's okay. Butterfly joints I kind of look at as being gravy anyway. It's like, if you got them, cool. If not, I can live without them. So bicep swivels, so the bicep rotates all the way around. His arms can move up about that far, so pretty good range of motion as far as that goes. He does have the double jointed elbows, and that's about the range of motion you get at the elbows. Honestly, this is going to be pretty much the same as the last two times I've reviewed this Fabok figure, but we're just going to keep going with it. It's been a while since I've done the JLA Batman, and even longer since I did this Three Jokers Batman. So we might as well just go over it again, right? Right? Okay. All right. So he's got the cool Mcfarlane torso articulation, so you can move that around any which way you want to. He can kick his leg up about that far, so not quite 90 degrees, but not too bad either. It does have a little bit of a rotate here, which sometimes this can be really stiff on Mcfarlane figures, so I don't normally talk about it too much. It doesn't seem to go all the way around, but it does give you like a little bit of motion there. I can't always get it to work, so that's why I usually don't talk about it, but on this one it works really well, so I figured I'd go ahead and mention it. He does have double jointed knees, so that's about the range of motion you get at the knees. And of course, he's got the cool Mcfarlane ball jointed wrist articulation, which I already talked about the wrist articulation, so I kind of skipped over it when I got the articulation, but whatever. And then at the ankles, same thing going on. He can bend his point his ankle down about that far, point it up about that far, and of course it's on the rocker, so it rotates all the way around where the foot meets the ankle, and also rotates all the way around where the ankle meets the shin. So we've got like a really good range of motion there. Those really cool Mcfarlane ball joints at the ankles. I love those. And then, of course, he's got the toe articulation just to show off. So Hugo Strange is, I think, for most casual fans of Batman, a fairly obscure villain. But for the real ones, for the ones like me, for the true devotees, we recognize that this guy is like a top level Batman villain. This is a guy who, like I said, his position as the arch nemesis of Batman was stolen from him by this jackanapes. We all love the Joker, right? Like, we all recognize that the Joker is a great villain. I mean, like, I know a lot of people say the Joker's overused, the Joker's, overhyped. Well, he's not really overhyped. He really is one of the greatest villains in comics, maybe the greatest villain in comics. Like, to me, it's either the Joker or Doctor Doom. It's one of those two guys. Oh, and Darkseid. We gotta mention Darkseid's one of the greatest also. But as far as Batman villains go, Like Hugo Strange really should be, I think, be considered like, in the top 10, certainly. And the only reason he doesn't rank higher is because you got so many great Batman villains. Now, I think like if you ask your average person on the street, anybody that you can find on the street could mention at least 4 Batman villains. And the 4 Batman villains that I think would be the most the ones that you would hear named the most in order would be the Joker, Catwoman, the Riddler, and the Penguin. I think that those would be the ones that, in order, if you just did a man on the street poll and just went up to people, I'll be like, hey, can you name me like a Batman villain? Those would be the ones you would get named, and the Joker would be the winner by far. Now, if you ask true comic book fans, you'd probably get a lot more responses of, Two-Face or Ra's al Ghul or Bane. Bane's probably getting kind of up there at this point, honestly. And I don't think you'd get quite as many for Hugo Strange as you would get for those guys, but he definitely deserves to be part of that conversation. I think that Hugo Strange is definitely a top 10 Batman villain. What do you think? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you're somebody who reads the comics and you agree with me that this is a guy who deserves a lot more love and attention as far as Batman villains go. If you're not somebody who reads the comics, you're probably still familiar with him from some other media because he's been in other things. He has been in like I said, at least one episode of Batman the Animated Series. He's been in the Arkham games, I believe. He was on The Brave and the Bold at some point, I think. I know he was on The Batman, not the Robert Pattinson movie, the animated from 2005. The Batman, that one. He was on that one, and oddly enough, he was voiced by Frank Gorshin, who played the Riddler on the classic Batman television series. So they brought him back, and he played Hugo Strange. So that guy has played like 2 of Batman's greatest villains. How about that? But yeah. So it's not like somebody who doesn't read the comics wouldn't have some way to be familiar with him, but I don't think he would stand out quite as much if you haven't read the comics. And if you have read the comics, this guy is like top tier. He's like one of the greatest. And like I said, he was the original arch nemesis of Batman. He was the guy that was intended to be Batman's Moriarty, and that role was usurped from him. You think he's bitter about it? Maybe he's a little bitter. If he has any kind of metatextual understanding of his own reality, he's got to be at least a little bitter, right? Anyway, that's pretty much it for Hugo Strange. I enjoyed talking about the figure and the character, but what do you think? Let me know what you think in the comments. We'll be back next week. I might do something tomorrow. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. It's going to depend on what I'm feeling like tomorrow, but I've done 5 videos this week. I feel like that's good, but I might do an extra one for Saturday. And of course, I'm going to take Sunday off as I always do. So I'll be back Monday to discuss some of these superpowers figures. And I don't even know which one I'm going to start with. Which one's at the top of the stack? Let's see which one's at the top of the stack. All right, so Monday I will be back to open Guy Gardner. So that's what we're going to do then. So if you want to make sure you don't miss that, make sure you like, subscribe, all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Hugo Strange, both the character and the figure. And we will talk to you next time. Bye.